Hello, this is Ron Gerber from Angelbeat. I'm so excited to have Julio here from Micro Focus, who is probably the biggest software company you've never heard of. I think they're about the 7th largest software company in the world when HP and HPE spun off all of their software groups into one standalone entity. People are obviously familiar with Microsoft and Oracle as some of the big software companies, SAP, but Micro Focus is just as big or maybe just a little bit smaller, and they've got lots of great solutions. What we want to do during this informative webinar is focus on a term called Robotic Process Automation. RPA is the latest 3-letter acronym that so many people in technology are looking at. And it's got such a wealth of benefits because there are so many tasks across all different functions in all organizations that are highly repetitive, that don't add any value to the organization's goal, that are incredibly error-prone, and oftentimes you're spending as much time trying to fix problems in these very tedious, labor-intensive tasks that are so hard to get done correctly. And what Julio is going to talk about is how you can take advantage of digital robots to improve the efficiency of your organization. And what it does is it frees up its employees to focus on more important strategic issues. It frees up the organization to focus resources on accelerating their digital transformation. This content has been incredibly well received at every Angelbeat in 2020. I'm so glad that you're able to listen in and hear Julio's insights in an online session. Please remember that you can always go to angelbeat.com, contact us if you have any questions, as well as microfocus.com. But without any further ado, let me turn it over to Julio, the subject matter expert in RPA.
Great, thank you, Ron. So my name is Julio Arteaga. I'm a solution architect with Micro Focus, specifically specializing on the application delivery portfolio and robotic process automation. We're one of the largest pure play software organization in the world today, and that's the result of various acquisitions and the merger with Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. So we bring this vast portfolio that addresses the needs of the organizations and bridges the gap between existing and emerging technologies so our customers can be successful in not only their process workflows, but also reducing risk as they do so. So today I want to talk to you about RPA, but before we define what RPA is, I want to talk about what are some of the challenges that organizations face today. Typically, businesses spend too much time working on mundane, repetitive tasks that tend to be error-prone. These are the daily processes that organizations must use in order to provide work for their own customer base as well. So these include things like moving files and folders and opening emails and extracting attachments and logging in and out of various applications and filling out forms and preparing and manipulating data. So this is the daily operational aspects of any organization as they provide services and provide products and so on and so forth. Now, the challenges that these companies face really cross multiple sectors, various industries, as you can see represented here. So from the financial firms that must process month-end and process the reconciliation and process fraud claims, all the way through insurance and medical and human resources and e-commerce organizations that really have a lot of moving parts. And again, these things tend to be error-prone because they are managed manually. There are employees doing this work, and it tends to really take a big part of their day. In addition to that, a lot of these tasks cross multiple application layers, multiple frameworks. Typically, it involves a legacy application, a mainframe, and they're difficult to automate just because of the nature of the application. So robotic process automation is the platform or the framework that takes these manual tasks and automates them using software robots. Now, these robots mimic UI-based human interaction, the user interface, and it automates it into a consistent workflow that can be managed, executed, and results can be achieved a lot faster. These actions are typically recorded via user interface, and they become part of a workflow and part of an automation process. Now, why do we need RPA? Well, organizations use RPA to minimize the impact and the error rates that are produced as part of these daily workflows. So it's a way of automating and integrating legacy applications into the workflow and automating quickly, simply, and effectively. The end result, the benefit, is that these software robots that are doing this work tend to be faster, more accurate, and the return on investment is there. That you reduce the cost and you free up the human employees to do other work that tends to be higher value. So you're really using them for making them more efficient in their day-to-day operations.
I think that's a very important point. This isn't a technology to eliminate labor per se. This is a technology to make labor more effective and thereby make the organization more effective as a whole.
Exactly. So we're looking to take what employees currently do and automate that so they can concentrate on things that are more important and things that are going to add more value to the organization as opposed to the daily grunt work, such as copying files. And the RPA market is not going anywhere. It's something that's here to stay. It's growing rapidly. In fact, Gartner forecasts that robotic process automation spending will reach $2.4 billion by 2022. In addition to that, organizations will be investing in software, and that growth is expected to be 41% year over year by 2022 as well. So the market is something that is there, it's stable, it's growing, and organizations are really taking advantage of this. So what is needed for a successful RPA framework, right? Let's look at some of the attributes and some of the things that are in place today that help organizations reach that RPA platform. So it starts with enterprise-class orchestration. Organizations today manage their IT process automation through a workflow um, uh, platform. So they manage incidents, they track changes, they respond to events, and they manage service requests and remediation processes all from one automated platform. So organizations have the tools today, they have the process. However, these are IT-based processes. So these are things that are automated on the back end via an API. They go from one system to the other. They go through various phases of reviews and approvals and so on and so forth. Customers, however, want to take this a little bit further. If you look at this slide, customers are seeing a need to automate not only the IT-based processes, but also the tasks and the processes that extend beyond IT. In fact, 83% of the use cases are for process automation that extends beyond IT. So they're still doing the ticket management, the change management, the deployments, the cloud automation, the service request management, and so on and so forth. Those things do not go away. However, they'd like to take it to the next logical step. So in order to do that, organizations are taking advantage of tools that they currently own. For example, test automation. Test automation has been around for quite a few years, and it's typically UI driven. So users will test an application, they'll automate an application, clicking on buttons and logging in and dragging and dropping objects on the screen and so on and so forth, and filling out forms and other activities. So that automation is there, typically in a record playback fashion. IT process automation, as we just discussed, has been there for a number of years. So RPA represents the ideal marriage of these two concepts. So now we have the UI automation, in other words, the user's process. As a user, I log into an application, I perform some function, I fill out some data on a form, I submit the form, and so on and so forth. Then IT automation provides the workflow behind the scenes that takes this concept of the UI automation and includes it as part of a workflow from beginning to end, along with results and scheduling and so on. So that marriage represents a complete robotic process automation platform that extends beyond IT automation. So ultimately, this orchestration, this marriage of those two concepts can be scaled up or down depending on the workload. So the efficiency is there. These software robots have what are known as skills, and these skills depend on the platform. So some robots are geared towards SAP, for example. Others are geared towards file systems and network operations. Others are geared towards back office operations. And yet others are geared towards provisioning systems like virtual machines and Docker images and so on. But the important thing is that these robots can be scaled up or down so that you're not wasting resources. So when we talk about automation, as Ron's mentioned, we're not taking jobs away from people. What we're doing is making them more efficient. So instead of employees sitting around doing nothing, waiting for a file to arrive or waiting for an email to arrive, they can work on other tasks. Let the robots worry about the emails, copying files, extracting attachments, and so on.
One of the interesting things, I was going back to one of the first slides you put up there, Julio, was that woman who's getting ready to pull out her hair. She looks a little frazzled, trying to grapple with these things. And we see that in every organization, every size. You know, the good thing is when you've got these software robots, they don't get so easily discouraged or frustrated. You just program them and get it done, and then again, you should probably have a before or after picture of that woman after they installed RPA from Micro Focus with a big smile on her face because she's doing all the important and more personally and professionally enjoyable and productive kind of roles, not the tedious, no value added stuff.
That's right, and in fact, that's one of the things about robotic process automation is that it really gives the employee as part of an organization a better understanding of what they need to do that's important for the organization. So they get a better definition of these are the things that I can work on that are more satisfying. They contribute more to the organization, while the robots do the grunt work, right? So that is very important. So an RPA platform also should be something that is easy to use. That's key here because IT automation that we've had, or many organizations have in place today, tend to be more on the technical side. So organizations will provide this process as part of a behind the scenes type of workflow via APIs from one system to the other. And there really isn't a visual representation of the various tasks. So we're looking for a platform that provides a design studio concept. That means that I can graphically see the workflow on the screen. It becomes a drag and drop operation as opposed to a programming exercise or a coding exercise. And that's important because the audience, as we'll see shortly, for RPA is not only the technical user, but also the end user or the business user. Robots tend to be resilient in a proper RPA platform. So our customers are looking for things that are industrial strength. That means when these robots do the work, if an application changes, it should not require a re-engineering of the workflow or a resetting of the entire system. So they should be resilient and really roll with the changes as they come along. As we all know, organizations tend to change very rapidly in their process. All this should be managed centrally. So that means the administrator, the owner of this platform, should be able to manage this from one single pane of glass, as opposed to having to revisit a whole bunch of different systems and sites and so on. This is vital because we're automating. So we want to make things easier. That's the key term here. Very simple concept. We want to make things easier for the end user, so the organizations can concentrate on what's important. And part of that is administration, not just the end user that's using the workflows, but also the administration of the platform itself. And speaking of the end user, all this should be available as a self-service portal. So as a manager or an executive or a business user, I should have access to a portal that provides a list or a catalog of services that I can execute. So, organizations typically, large organizations will have many different departments, many different moving parts. And, there really shouldn't be that concept of having to call a department and request a special request for a workflow to be executed. This is something that the customer should be able to do on their own, simply from a single pane of glass, single portal, catalog of services, all executable from one central location. As we mentioned just a few slides ago, these robots should be scalable. The platform should be scalable. So it should be available 24/7. Even though the robots may not be doing any work, when there is work to be done, It should not become an exercise, again, in coding or reconfiguration. It should be readily available, ready to work. And then finally, the most important thing is enterprise level security. As systems become more complicated, as processes become more complicated, there's a lot of information flowing back and forth. And we want to minimize the externalization of data wherever possible. Unfortunately, today, a lot of manual processes require that data be externalized. So someone will print out a report and it has sensitive data. That report is a physical copy laying around somewhere that represents a risk. So we want to minimize that. We also want to provide encryption from beginning to end. So that means that data is protected, data is not externalized, and it's a very secure platform. So we've seen organizations that can make use of RPA, from organizations like financials to insurance, human resources, and so on. Let's talk about the individual users. Who are the consumers within your organization that might use RPA? Well, we're familiar with the IT-centric approach. That is the IT ops engineer, the analyst, the process expert. They're concerned with processing tickets, incidents, and remediating problems, and taking care of providing the infrastructure to remediate these problems. So their support needs are to automate across legacy and modern applications, and making sure that this happens pretty much behind the scenes. So they don't really deal too much with the user interface or the visual aspects of this. Now, on the right-hand side, we have the business-centric user. Her concern is to automate what she currently does today. And that could be a wide range of activities. That could be from logging into a system, that could mean copying files, that could mean sending a report, that could mean sending an email or reading an email and extracting data, and so on and so forth. But her task is to automate quickly, easily, non-invasively. So we want to make sure that we're not changing her process. The process should remain the same, but simply be automated. So if we look at the end user perspective for a moment, we look at a use case, a general use case. Think of a service onboarding for a human resources department. Now, we work for organizations. Many of you went through a hiring process, and that process has multiple steps. And you can see here that that process touches many different platforms. From the file system, when you get hired, you receive an employee handbook. It could be a PDF or a Word document. Then you provide documentation to the organization. That means your license or perhaps your tax forms, and so on. Those will need to get scanned. So that represents data being input into the system. Then you're going to be provisioned on Office 365. You get an account, you get access to email, and then SAP and service management and notification systems will be updated, and so on and so forth. All these different platforms have to be accessed in different ways. So the file system might be accessed via command line. Office 365 is through an API, SAP, and service management and so on will be accessed via the user interface. So 3 different access methods. However, it's all part of one single workflow. So for the end user, such as myself or yourself, right? If you're a hiring manager, you're going to onboard a new employee, you go to the service portal and you select onboard, and that kicks off the process. One single workflow process that will touch each one of these individual systems. So from the end user perspective, you don't see complexity, you see business process. Let's look at a little bit more specific example from one of our banking customers. And this is a customer that wanted to automate the credit dispute reporting and prioritization process. So they faced a couple of challenges. First challenge, legacy systems, mainframes. A lot of these systems have been around for years. They typically don't have an easy way of accessing the data. It's either through a direct database call or through the user interface. Now, modern systems as well need to be taken into consideration, and those provide an API, or they could be via a web interface. So their challenge was automating this process across multiple applications. In addition to that, security was a big concern. It's a bank, so compliance is very important, obviously, to this bank. So they wanted to minimize the externalization of data. So the manual process involved someone going to the mainframe, printing a report, and then manually inputting data into a form. Again, think of the security implications. Now you have a physical report on someone's desk representing risk. So by taking this process and automating it, they were able to save time. So managers saved 2 hours per day. Doesn't sound like a lot, but when you put it together, many managers think of the time savings alone. Security, of course, now did not become an issue because they eliminated printouts. All data was encrypted, and they were able to meet regulatory requirements just simply by the fact that they automated. That was an immediate result. And they were able to establish an automatic but also repeatable process that was reliable, efficient, and really provided the time savings so that the managers can concentrate on the real decision-making process that they were hired to manage. So what are the RPA takeaways? We're looking for a platform that provides enterprise-class orchestration and is scalable. So that means it grows with the organization. It should not be limited by the amount of work or the complexity of the process. Should also be an always-on architecture available 24/7. The work may not be something that comes 24/7, but it certainly should be available as the work arrives and the robots are ready for implementation and running. Security and resilience are two major factors. So that security that becomes a natural part of the platform, not something that you must implement. No, it should be something that's implemented naturally as part of the process. And then resilient robots that can roll with the changes that come about as a result of the process. So the benefits that you get are very, very important. They have a direct impact on several things. One is you accelerate time to value. So whatever the end product is, you're getting to market faster. You're getting to results faster. If you are onboarding an employee, you are getting that person ready for work very quickly. Instead of days, it could be hours. You're eliminating the error-prone aspect of that process. So potentially, instead of copying the wrong files, which might have sensitive data to that person's directory, you can have a process that eliminates the human factor and eliminates the errors. So as you reduce these errors, the cost is also reduced because you're not spending time, vital time, fixing these errors and redoing the work. So it's repeatable, it's resilient, and it's not error prone. So you're decreasing costs. At the same time, you're increasing productivity. You're completing tasks in seconds, minutes, or even hours as opposed to days. So that's what we're looking for as far as benefits. So that's RPA. Thank you very much.
Julio, that was absolutely fantastic. A couple of other points as I've heard the same presentation at live Angelbeat events and seen the tremendous positive response. One thing is you can use these robotic or these robot software programs, whether or not your applications reside on-prem, whether or not they work in the cloud. Just work with Julio and his team to configure it. Doesn't matter if you're 100% in the cloud or if you've got some legacy apps that for any regulatory technical reasons you want to keep them on-prem, you can still make it work. Another major factor behind organizations responding to this talk was that Micro Focus has already been there, done that across so many different organizations. So when you use their RPA robots, they've got smarts behind the scenes where they've already done onboarding of new employees from an HR standpoint. They've already automated a lot of the help desk functions within IT, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. That's why we're so excited to have Micro Focus discuss this important subject. And as everyone's in this increasingly challenging economic workplace, it's hard to hire people, especially for these kind of roles. The accuracy you get if you want to outsource this to another location is always dubious. Lots of value in this. I look forward to seeing everyone at a live Angelbeat event in the near future. We're glad to bring you this online training on such an important issue. Please go to angelbeat.com. You can contact us if you have any questions. You can also go directly to microfocus.com for information not only in RPA, but on the broad array of software platforms that they offer. Julio, did you have anything else to add before I turn off the webinar recording?
I just wanted to add that RPA is available and today, so definitely take advantage. Please visit us and look at the various options and configurations that we offer. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all very much. Bye-bye now. And I will end the webinar now.